Welcome to Think For Yourself Clubhouse. My name is Bill Martin. My guest today is Todd Wilson. My co-host is Aggie Martin. I know her. Todd, you indicated in Albany in Athens County.
Yes.
And you're running for Congress, United States Congress.
Yep.
And that would be Congressional District number 2, or as we cognoscenti sometimes call it, CD2. And the extent of CD2 apparently is all the way over to the west of Batavia and Claremont County, and to the east in Marietta in Washington County, and up to Chillicothe in Ross County, and down to Ironton in Lawrence County. So it's a big district.
Yes, it's the largest district by area in the state. It's also the largest district by number of counties. It has 16 counties. And so, yeah, it's a very large district. It's about 4 hours from one side to the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope your car's up to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just when gas prices went up. Right?
Just when gas prices went up, that's what you need.
Timing.
Yeah. Where do you work?
So I work in the Engineering Technology Management Department at Ohio University at the Russ College of Engineering. And I am the Learning Lab Coordinator there. I'm over 12 different labs. Those include a machine shop, a metal fabrication shop, a robotics lab, 2 wood shops, plastics lab, mechatronics lab, a bunch of different labs. That the students.
Sounds like that's a pretty busy thing, too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and your educational background, Todd?
Yeah, so I graduated in 1994 with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. I graduated last spring with a Master's in Project Management, and I'm finishing up my bachelor's in marine freshwater and environmental biology this semester.
Marine and freshwater, that's water.
Yeah.
So you get underwater. So are you a diver?
I got scuba certified probably about 4 or 5 semesters ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun sport. I don't do it anymore for obvious reasons.
Yeah. I'd like to do it more, but it takes time.
Yeah.
I really haven't had a chance to do much of it. So.
Family life, you indicated to me during prep that you're a dad?
Yeah, so I have a daughter who's going to be 26 and a son who's going to be 23.
I ask candidates, we've done several candidate interviews, I ask candidates basically something like, well, in your case, this is a great big district, and it's been Republican for a while, and you're a Democrat from OU, and facing the populous western counties. What got you started on this trip?
January 6th, where they stormed the Capitol, was sort of my first wake-up call that our democracy was seriously actually threatened. I didn't think I would ever see anything like that in my lifetime. And then January 7th of this year, when Renee Good was shot, that just enforced that thinking that our democracy was definitely threatened. But more than just her getting shot, the fact that when they went on TV that night and told me, as a citizen of the United States, that something had happened that I didn't see, that I in fact had seen the opposite of what they were saying, that just enraged me to the point where I said to myself, what can I do to fix this government, to make it so that I live in a country with a government that I can tolerate? And for me, that solution was to flip the House and the Senate. My contribution was going to be, well, let's run for U.S. House of Representatives. And I, of course, had no idea what that involved. I went to the Board of Elections the next day, January 8th, and they said, well, all you need is a petition with 50 signatures and $85. And so I signed up, and here we are.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically we have a similar story, although what you've got is a couple of old fogies have decided they're going to go into the podcast business.
Okay.
We got a mom and pop podcast. You run for Congress. So
Yeah.
You do what you got to do.
That's right. It's never too late to start a new career, right?
Oh, out of a career. When we had our prep, one of the things I always like to do is, say, let's talk about your number one issue. And you indicated that your number one issue was wealth disparity. You want to explain that to me?
Yeah, wealth disparity. So the top 1% of the population has 1/3 of the wealth in this country. And to kind of put that in perspective, I worked up some numbers because I was trying to figure out the best way to illustrate this. Yeah, so if you take Ohio State's football stadium, all right, and you filled that up 33 times, that number of people would have 1/3 of the entire wealth of this country. And you think about filling up that stadium 33 times, that's a lot of people, but it's not that many people. So you can kind of quantify that number of people that hold all that wealth. And then the top 10% holds 70% of the wealth. So it's an even bigger chunk. And yes, 1% holds 1/3, but 10% holds 70% of the wealth. I mean, it's insane. And then if you look at the bottom 50% of the population, they only hold about 2.5% of the entire wealth in the country. So the wealth disparity is just staggering. And for me, I see trends. I see, that gap getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just not sustainable. No country, no society can sustain that trend. So
History tells us that.
yeah, history tells us that.
Yeah. So what are you going to do about it?
Well, I've got some ideas. I think, Bernie Sanders is kind of on the right track with the billionaire tax. I don't know if it's going to be as simple of a solution as just a straight up tax. Maybe there's some other way to structure that tax, but definitely something along those lines. The billionaires have got to be taxed. That wealth has to be redistributed. That wealth is generated by middle class and working class Americans, and yet it's being hoarded somewhere else instead of being distributed back into that population so that those people can benefit from it.
Some of the analysis that we've been doing in these podcasts over the past several months has led me to suggest that let's look at the impediments to employment in Southern Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big impediments is child care, and
Sure.
child care programs expensive to run. I cannot get around the idea that billionaires ought to be taxed, and some of that money ought to be used to provide governmental supplied child care.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with having a governmental program of child care, well run, well supervised, subject to strict regulations. So
Sure.
a mom or dad takes the kid to child care, knows he or she's safe, can go to work.
Yeah.
Or can go to school.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather that be done than send all the money to the top all the time so that they can go to Mars or wherever it is they want to go next.
The thing is that, because this wealth is being hoarded, there's basic services and standards of living that are not happening, right? And so universal health care is one of them. Universal child care is another one. Universal college education, all of these things. If you take your population and you take care of them, and they're better educated, and they have better jobs, and have better support in their society, they're going to be better, more productive citizens. And that's not just in terms of a dollar amount, but in terms of their contribution to being a basic, decent human being. Anytime you have a population that is struggling, is hurting, is not able to make ends meet, then somebody's going to come in and give them a scapegoat. And they're going to say, oh, all of your problems are because of this or because of these people. And we see that happening right now.
They use fear.
Yes, they use fear, even if the fear is unwarranted. And that's happened throughout history. We see that, time and time again. So my goal would be to, get into Congress, represent the people that I'm in touch with and understand because I'm one of them, and develop and pass legislation that fixes these ills, in our economy and our society. We have to do it, because if we don't, things are never going to get better. They're only going to get worse. We see them getting worse now. And that's caused this huge divide in our country where we're no longer Americans, we're Democrats and Republicans. We're us and we're them. It really needs to get back to where we're Americans all working towards a unified goal, even if we think that goal needs to be approached in some slightly different ways, but we no longer know how to have a conversation in a civil way. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I don't know how much we'll get into that, but social media is definitely one thing that's driving
I was going to say,
Yeah.
a lot of this is what you're seeing
Yeah.
on the screen, as opposed to if you have an opportunity to have folks together in the same meeting at the same time,
Yeah.
dealing with all with similar problems.
Yeah.
Data centers is a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Aggie and I went to a data center meeting several weeks ago, and we saw Republican farmers, and we saw Amish, and we saw sign-carrying Democrats, all in the same room, worried about similar problems.
Sure.
What's going to happen to our water? What's going to happen to our electric bill?
Our air.
Our air,
Yeah,
noise, all these things that are attended upon data centers in rural Ohio.
Yeah, my take is that Americans in general, on both sides, are more alike than they are different. But they've been convinced otherwise, right?
That's right.
And
That's right.
they've been convinced in such a convincing way that they don't realize it, and they're on this track. And I was just talking to somebody the other day, I was like, when I was a kid, I don't remember it being like this. Or even when I was a young adult, I do not remember this. I know people had differences. I know people even got angry sometimes. But there's outright hatred, unwarranted hatred right now that gets thrown at people that don't even know each other. And I get it on social media from people. I get, as somebody who's running for an office, I get that. And I understand that, as someone who's running for a political office, you have to have a thick skin. I feel like I do for the most part. But it still makes me wonder, how are we going to fix this problem of people having this hate when they don't have any reason for the hate? I mean, there shouldn't be hate at all. But, be angry, have a discussion, let's resolve something, and find some common ground. But there's no reason for you to hate me when you don't even know me.
And you used to have to be accountable for what you said. Now it's all anonymous in a way.
Yes, so the thing is with social media, people can get behind a keyboard and there's not that accountability, right? Whereas when there wasn't the internet or social media and you had to talk to somebody face to face, there's that human element, right? And I think that when people get together and they're right in front of each other, that human element sometimes will kick in, because I think basically we are all, or I want to think that we're all basically good, not bad. But when you lose that human element and you're just behind a keyboard and a screen, there's no accountability. And so you say whatever you want to say, and then the next person says whatever they want to say, and it escalates and it escalates and escalates. And we get into that situation that we're in right now, where there's no
But
no common
the
ground.
free speech issue is there, and I agree there should be free speech,
Mhm.
but I don't think it should be anonymous free speech.
Right.
I don't know how to fix it though.
Yeah.
Okay, we're kind of back in tune here, and I'd like to try an experiment. You say that there are issues that divide the country, and people just plain get mad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the issues around here that people just plain get mad about is guns.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a gun owner?
I'm not a gun owner.
Do you resent gun owners?
I don't.
In Southern Ohio, in CD2, there's gun owners all over the place,
Sure.
more than not.
Yeah.
And that's okay, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, that's part of our culture. I mean, hunting and fishing and, appreciating nature and the land and all of that are, it's part of the culture, especially, the Appalachian area.
In the Appalachian area in particular, yeah.
So, I don't have any problem with that. For me, the Second Amendment was written with a certain intent and a certain time in our history. And so, we were under British rule, and we didn't have a say in our own destination, and our houses were being occupied, and our arms were being taken. And so obviously when we got out from underneath of that, one of the first things we did was say, we have a right to arm ourselves and have a militia. That was then. But like every amendment that was written back then, times have changed. and we have to reinterpret those amendments. And so for me, back when the Second Amendment was written, there weren't, semi-automatic guns, right? And you couldn't go buy 50 guns because a gun was hard to come by. It was basically almost made by hand, and you used it primarily for hunting and protecting your property. But now we've gotten into a situation in modern times where there are so many guns and they're so easy to get a hold of that, like any technology, and we've talked about different technologies, including AI and automobiles and all these different things. It's another technology that's been improved upon since those times. And the forefathers, when they wrote these amendments and all these other documents at that time period, had no idea of some of the things that would be around. I mean, could not even conceive of these things. They couldn't have conceived of the automobile. They couldn't have conceived of an automatic, rifle. All these things that we have, these technologies now. And so the Second Amendment is only, is it 1 or 2 sentences? But it's very, very short. It's very, very short. And so I think it leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And I think my interpretation is that there should be a limit on certain types of weapons because, quite frankly, they aren't a necessity in our modern society.
It's the weapons that Biden used to call assault rifles, I believe.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to have assault rifles. But saying that does not say that you're going to take everybody's gun away.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. No. This isn't about taking people's guns away. It's about keeping guns out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them, and a certain type of guns. And I'm not even saying 100% that assault rifles should be banned, but I definitely feel like because of the nature of that weapon, there should be additional restrictions. Again, because the Second Amendment doesn't give you a blanket right to have whatever kind of gun you want and use it in any way that you want. Was not the intention of the Second Amendment.
Otherwise, we'd have howitzers and bazookas on the street corners, and we don't.
Sure, exactly. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
if you draw a parallel to, again, I use the automobile a lot because everybody has one. You can have an automobile, but you can't drive it 80 miles an hour down the street because there's laws and regulations, because it's a dangerous thing to possess if
Okay,
not
so-
used properly.
For purposes of our discussion, I think first of all we have to establish you're not a socialist,
No,
and you're not going to take everybody's guns away.
no.
Okay.
And you're not going to take beef away or pickup trucks, right?
No. I love beef and have a pickup truck too. So.
Wait a minute. Let's get this on the record. You own a pickup
I
truck.
own a pickup truck. I own
And you love beef.
I own an
okay.
old Ford, yeah,
Okay.
with 265,000 miles on it. So.
That's not what you're campaigning in with, is it?
No, I'm
Oh.
driving another piece of junk.
Okay, I'm going to toss another piece of meat out there. Data centers.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion of data centers?
I think that there should be a moratorium on the construction of any further data centers. I firmly believe that because there are multiple reasons. If you rewind why the data centers are being put in place, which is AI, I think AI is another technology that is not being used but being abused. And
Cryptocurrency also, I
Well,
think, a little.
yeah, for me, AI is fine for things like medical diagnosis and scientific things and all of that. It's great for that. It can do those things much faster than people. It can catch certain kinds of cancers that we miss. That is a great application, but it's being abused and used for other things that are not necessities, things that will take away jobs from Americans. And these AI data centers are essentially they're automation factories. The main reason that these billionaires want to put them in is because AI can be used for automation to eliminate jobs, to reduce labor costs, to increase profit, to increase what shareholders get, which again, none of that benefits. It benefits the top 1 and 10%,
Yeah.
right? That's
Now,
who's benefiting.
Is this an issue appropriate for Congress as opposed to the state legislatures?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
It's a national problem, is it
It is a
not?
national problem. It is everywhere. And everybody knows about the electricity usage and the price of electricity going up where these data centers go in. And everybody knows about, not everybody, but these are the 2 issues that most people understand about AI data centers. They know about the water usage for cooling, because of the high heat that's given off by the semiconductors in the computers. But what a lot of them don't realize is that these data centers can increase the average temperature in those communities by up to 16 degrees, and for as far as 6 miles away from the center of the data center. So you think about putting an air conditioner in your house. The air conditioner takes heat out of the living space and it pumps it into the environment. Okay? You have enough air conditioners, especially say like in a city, pumping heat out into the environment, you have this hot spot, this hot environment, and we've seen it all over the country, all over the world in fact, where these cities, their temperatures are elevating higher and higher and higher. And this is because of air conditioning. Well, data centers are like a giant air conditioner. They're taking all that heat from these computers and they're pumping it into the environment. So we already have global warming. We already have extremely dry weather. We have increased fires. We have increased hurricanes and all kinds of weather patterns that are being generated from this extra heat. This is just one more source of heat that we don't need put in the world. I mean, it's a staggering amount of heat that they pump out into the environment. And farmers are already struggling, with crops and profitability. This is only going to make that worse because they're getting put in, for the most part, rural areas, and so those rural areas' average temperature are going to go up, which is going to cause even more drought.
George, this is an interesting perspective on data centers. Engineering perspective, I think this is terrific. There's one more issue I'd like to broach, and I think it's more noise than anything else, but the Democrats for the last couple of years have been absolutely beat over the head with this notion that our girls' athletics ought to be protected from transgender folks that started out as male. And Aggie pointed out, I think in a letter to the editor at one point, that all this stems from apparently one case of a transgender fellow that was a swimmer.
Probably not all, but a lot of it
Yeah.
comes from that one swimmer.
And of course we want to take care of transgender people, make sure they're not discriminated against, but that does not go to the extent, in my view anyway, of allowing genetically male people to compete in girls' athletics. And almost uniformly, Republicans accuse Democrats of wanting that to happen.
Basically,
where do you stand on that?
Well, I definitely don't think that that's something that Democrats want to happen uniformly. I really don't. I think boys and girls sports were created for a reason because, again, given that I've studied biology, and I understand that sex is one thing and gender is another, and that we are anatomically and physiologically different, male and female, by sex, that even if you identify as, a different gender, it doesn't change you physiologically. You still are going to have differences. The differences are going to exist between someone who is born male and someone who's born female. So if we want to maintain that tradition of, boy sports and girl sports, then I think that you throw that out of balance if you start putting people in the sport where they aren't physiologically matched. And so the solution would be either to keep it that, the sex that you were born with is the sex that you participate in, or just get rid of boys and girls sports and just mix it all up. Make it all.
I somehow don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I don't either, and I think that's what.
There are some sports that it doesn't make any difference what sex or gender you are. For example, target shooting.
And there are certain individuals like Billie Jean King can compete with whatever rig. What was his name?
Tennis player Bobby Riggs.
Yeah. And this is by no means to say that a woman athlete is not as capable as a man athlete. It's just saying that we have physiological differences that we acknowledge.
Sure.
We acknowledge them all throughout society.
Just watch Ohio State women's basketball. That Big Ten women's basketball is wonderful. Yeah. It's a great sport.
And I just think that if we want to keep that tradition of boys sports and girls sports, then it has to be a physiological match. Otherwise, that's not the intent of separating boys and girls sports.
Sure. And there are some issues with transgender that Aggie and I think we agree that it should just be somebody else's decision. For example, can you imagine the problems that parents have if they have a child, a young teenager, and that child is suffering because he or she thinks she's stuck in the wrong kind of body?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And to say what kind of treatment that child should have or shouldn't have, to me, invades the problems of that family.
Yeah, I think that, the thing about this is that it is still a very new subject. It is one in our society that we are really just starting to grapple with. There's a lot that we haven't figured out, and it's a tricky subject. I'm never going to say that I have it all figured out, because I don't, because nobody does. Nobody has this figured out right now, and so it's just one of those things where we have to try to be as respectful of everybody's feelings as we can, and try to make sure that people in the trans community are supported and treated right and treated fairly, and that nobody ever feels like they are being bullied or mistreated or hurt or threatened.
Yeah, and I think
that can't happen. That's not acceptable.
We respect the rights of the family in the matter. We respect the rights of the school district in the matter, and just kind of work it out as best you can with these difficult problems.
Mm-hmm.
I think we about run out of time for our session today,
Mm-hmm.
Todd. Do you have any concluding remarks?
Yeah, I really wanted to kind of touch on education, because I think education is another really, really big problem in our country. I think our education system is under attack, clearly. This administration's attempted to get rid of the Department of Education.
They've moved somebody else into their building. I think they have.
And, we have 21% of Americans are functionally illiterate. 21%. And that's probably only going to increase if we don't support our education system. So can you imagine a fourth of the population being functionally illiterate? If you're functionally illiterate, so many doors close for you. And not only do doors close for you in terms of what you can earn and your quality of your life, but you are not a well-informed citizen. We need citizens to be well-informed so they can make good decisions about their leaders that are going to go into Congress and represent them.
What should the Congress do about this problem?
Well, again, this all goes back to the wealth disparity. There's money to do anything we need to do. There's money for universal health care, there's money for child care, there's money for education, but when you've got a $1.5 trillion proposed military budget out there, and that's their priorities, and they're waging wars that we don't need to wage, there goes the money. There goes the money. When you're spending $1 billion a day on a war, and that $1 billion a day could be going into your education system, you just can't make the argument that we can't afford it. That's like someone going out and buying a $100,000 Land Rover, and then going home and saying, I bought you a box of macaroni and cheese because I can't afford to feed you kids. It's not true. It's priorities. It's what your priorities are. And so we need to readjust our priorities. We need to tax the billionaires. We need to take that hoarded wealth, reallocate it into creating a more educated, a happier, a more well-informed society that's not going to be looking for scapegoats to put their problems on, but that's going to feel like their government represents them, does what they need to do for them, and they're not going to be unhappy with the things that are happening in their life.
I guess I agree with all that, but I also think that with respect to school districts and so on, if there are kids out there being homeschooled, then those kids ought to be taking achievement tests, and if they're not getting the education at home that they should be getting when I think they come on into the public school and take courses there.
Yeah.
I think we have a responsibility to make sure that, as you say, we have a minimally educated electorate, and that's the way democracies work.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other things that pertain to education. That's one aspect of it, and that's something that I'm not extremely knowledgeable on. But as I go through these next few months leading up to the midterm, there's a lot of things I want to research and learn more about. No one person knows everything about everything, so I'm trying to find out a little bit about everything as I go and I've learned a lot, even just in the last 2 months, about many topics.
Yeah, I like the fact that you are a problem solver and a thinker
Yeah.
and somebody who will look into something. I've been following the Ohio's taking away public school money for many years.
Sure, yeah,
They've been giving it to religious and other private
Yeah.
schools.
yeah.
And this is unconstitutional so
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned in both Ohio and the United States. So I'm really worried about the separation of church and state.
Sure, yeah. No, there's definitely been issues around that. I think that separation needs to be enforced, needs to be intact. I think that money should not be taken away from public education and redirected to any other area. And I think that in addition to that, it needs to be increased. I think we need to pay our teachers more. We need to make teacher salaries, such that we entice the cream of the crop, out of college that want to teach. Teaching should be one of the most revered careers in society, but it's not. You've got teachers that are buying their own school supplies because they're not getting the budgets that they need, and that's just inexcusable.
And leaving the job for something else that pays twice as much.
Sure, they go to the private sector because they can make more money, and we need to fix that problem.
Okay. Viewers, as you can tell, this might generate an idea that perhaps we need fewer salesmen and lawyers in politics and maybe a few more engineers. Here's a chap that comes to us with fact-filled things to say, and it was kind of fun. So, thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
Best of luck to you in your campaign.
Thank you very much. It was nice coming out. And I would like to mention that my website, very easy to remember, is MrWilsonGoesToWashington.com.
I like that.